What if I told you that there once lived a man who had lobster-like claws instead of hands, or a woman with 4 legs, and even a man with 2 heads? Sounds impossible, right? So buckle up, because we're about to dive into the bizarre world of circus sideshows. Today, we're looking at 15 circus performers who actually existed. Number 15, the Lobster Boy. Grady Stiles Jr., known as the Lobster Boy, was born with a rare condition called ectrodactyly. This condition caused his hands and feet to look like claws. He was the 4th generation in his family to have this condition. From a young age, Grady performed in freak shows, just like his father did. As he grew older, he continued performing and even included 2 of his children in the act. Together, they were known as the Lobster family. However, Grady had a dark side. He struggled with alcoholism and often physically abused his wife. Things took a tragic turn in 1978 when he murdered his 18-year-old son-in-law. The son-in-law had called him a freak, which Grady couldn't tolerate. Grady was sentenced to house arrest and 15 years of probation. The court decided this punishment because there were no suitable facilities for someone with his condition. In 1992, Grady's wife and son decided they had had enough. They conspired with a sideshow performer to murder Grady. Christopher Wyant agreed to do the job for $1,500. He shot Grady multiple times in his trailer. When Grady died, only 10 people attended his funeral. No one volunteered to be a pallbearer. His coffin had just one bouquet with a banner that read, "From your loving wife." Number 14. General Tom Thumb. Charles Sherwood Stratton was born in 1838, and you probably know him better as General Tom Thumb. This guy had quite a unique life. When Charles was just 6 months old, his growth came to a sudden halt. After that, he only had a few slow growth spurts. By the time he was 18 years old, he had reached a height of 81 centimeters. Charles's small stature caught the attention of the famous showman P.T. Barnum. He began touring with Barnum, performing as General Tom Thumb. His size made him famous and wealthy while he was still young. Thanks to his partnership with Barnum, Charles lived a luxurious life. He got to travel, perform, and enjoy the finer things in life, which many people could only dream of. In 1883, Charles had a close call when he survived a hotel fire in Milwaukee. Sadly, the fire took the lives of 71 people, but Charles made it out alive. However, just 6 months after escaping the fire, Charles passed away due to a stroke. At the time of his death, he had grown to his maximum height of 102 centimeters. Charles Sherwood Stratton's life was certainly extraordinary, filled with both glamour and challenges. His story remains a remarkable example of how unique traits can lead to an unforgettable legacy. Number 13. Four-Legged Lady, Myrtle Corbin. Myrtle Corbin was not your average girl. She was born with a super rare condition that gave her 2 pelvises and 4 legs. Imagine having an extra pair of legs. This unique feature set her apart from everyone else right from the start. Her dad saw an opportunity in her uniqueness and initially showed her off to neighbors for a bit of extra cash. It wasn't long before Myrtle's condition caught the eye of the famous showman, P.T. Barnum. He hired her to perform when she was just 13 years old. Performing with Barnum turned out to be a lucrative gig. By the time she turned 18, Myrtle had earned enough money to retire. She was quite the financial success story at such a young age. After retiring, Myrtle found love and married a man named James Clinton Bicknell. Together, they built a family, having 5 children. It seems Myrtle was not only unique in appearance, but also in her ability to balance a career and family life. Myrtle passed away in 1928. After her death, doctors made an astonishing discovery. Both of her pelvises had fully functioning reproductive organs. This made her an important medical case study. Number 12. Fanny Mills. Fanny Mills had an unusual career performing in circuses because of her exceptionally large feet. Her condition, known as Milroy disease, caused swelling in her lower legs and feet due to a buildup of lymph fluid. Fanny was originally from England, but her family moved to Sandusky, Ohio, when she was young. Despite her condition, she weighed 52 kilograms and had feet that measured 48 centimeters long and 18 centimeters wide. Fanny needed special shoes to accommodate her large feet. She wore custom-made size 30 shoes crafted from 3 goat skins. In 1885, Fanny's life took a turn when she began performing in sideshows. Promoters billed her as having the largest feet on earth, which drew a lot of attention. During her performances, Fanny had the help of a nurse named Mary Brown. Mary assisted Fanny with her daily needs and supported her during shows. To attract even more attention, show promoters offered a reward of $5,000 and farmland to any man willing to marry Fanny. This unusual incentive worked when William Brown, Mary's brother, married Fanny in 1886. Unfortunately, Fanny's health began to decline, and she retired from performing in 1891 due to illness. Sadly, she passed away later that same year from her illness. Fanny Mills's life was unique and challenging, yet she remains a fascinating figure in circus history. Number 11. Chang and En. Chang and En Bunker were conjoined twins born in 1811. They were connected by cartilage at the chest and had fused livers. Because they were born in Siam, which is now Thailand, the term Siamese twins was coined to describe them. In 1829, they started touring around the world with a man named Robert Hunter. After their contract with Hunter ended, Chang and En took charge of their own performances, traveling and showcasing their unique condition. Eventually, they settled on a plantation in North Carolina. There, they married sisters Adelaide and Sarah Ann Yates. Between the two couples, they had a total of 21 children, which is quite an impressive number. Tragically, in 1874, En woke up one morning to find that Chang had passed away during the night. A doctor tried to separate them, but En died 3 hours later. Today, a death cast of the twins and their preserved liver can be seen in Philadelphia's Mutter Museum. It's a fascinating piece of history that shows just how unique and resilient they were. Number 10. Isaac Sprag, the living skeleton. Isaac Sprag was born on May 21, 1841 in Massachusetts. He became famous as the living human skeleton because of his extremely thin body. When Isaac was 12, he got sick after swimming and started losing weight. Despite eating normally, he kept getting thinner. Doctors said he had severe progressive muscle loss, which means his muscles kept wasting away. Isaac tried to work as a shoemaker and at a grocery store. However, his health made it hard for him to keep a steady job. Things got even tougher when Isaac's parents died. He was left without a job and struggled with money. In 1865, he found a new way to make a living by performing in circus sideshows as the living skeleton. In 1866, the famous showman P.T. Barnum hired Isaac to perform in his American Museum show. Barnum paid Isaac $80 a week to be a curiosity in his show. Isaac's extreme thinness attracted lots of attention and drew big crowds. Sadly, Isaac's health condition eventually led to his death. The exact date isn't known, but his story remains a fascinating part of circus history. Number 9. Schlitzie the Pinhead. Schlitzie was born in 1901, possibly in New York, but no one is quite sure what his birth name was. He had a condition called microcephaly, which meant he had a smaller brain, skull, and body than most people. This condition made it hard for him to develop mentally and limited his ability to speak. Despite these challenges, Schlitzie found a place in the world of sideshows. He performed in major circuses during the early 20th century, astonishing audiences. Interestingly, Schlitzie often performed dressed as a female, even though he was male. In 1936, a man named George Surtees became Schlitzie's legal guardian. Sadly, when Surtees died in 1965, Schlitzie was placed in a mental institution. But fate had other plans. Bill Unks, a sword swallower who had seen Schlitzie perform, recognized him and decided to become his caregiver. Thanks to Bill, Schlitzie was able to return to performing before eventually retiring in Los Angeles. During his retirement, Schlitzie would entertain people at MacArthur Park, bringing smiles to many faces. Unfortunately, he passed away in 1971 without much money or a permanent home. 36 years after his death, a fan raised enough money to fund a gravestone for Schlitzie in 2007. This gesture ensured that Schlitzie's legacy would be remembered. Number 8. Ella Harper, the Camel Girl. Ella Harper was born with a rare condition called congenital genu recurvatum, which made her knees bend backward. Because of this, she walked on all fours, earning the nickname Camel Girl. Starting at age 12, Ella began performing in circus sideshows. People were fascinated by her unique way of moving, and she quickly became a popular act. In 1886, W.H. Harris, who ran the Nickel Plate Circus, signed her to perform. She spent a year touring with the circus, showing off her extraordinary talent and gaining fame. After a year on the road, Ella decided to leave the circus life behind to focus on her education. She returned to her childhood home, but around 1890, her father tragically died in a house fire. In 1905, Ella married Robert Savely, a schoolteacher and bookkeeper. A year later, in 1906, she gave birth to a daughter named Mabel. Sadly, Mabel died when she was only 6 months old. In 1918, Ella and Robert adopted a girl named Jewel. Heartbreakingly, Jewel also passed away just 3 months after joining their family. Ella lived a life filled with both remarkable moments and deep sorrow. She passed away from colon cancer on December 19, 1921. Today, people remember her mostly for her time in the circus as the Camel Girl. Number 7. The bearded woman Annie Jones. Annie Jones entered the world in Virginia in the year 1865, and she came with a feature that made her stand out: facial hair. She was not your average baby, and her parents quickly realized that her unique appearance could bring opportunities. Spotting a chance for fame and fortune, Annie's parents introduced her to the world of entertainment. Before she even turned 1, she started performing in P.T. Barnum's exhibitions, capturing the curiosity of many. Barnum was a master of marketing, and he cleverly branded Annie as the infant Esau, drawing a comparison to a biblical figure known for being hairy. This catchy name quickly grabbed people's attention. Recognizing Annie's potential, Barnum offered her mother a contract for 3 years, paying a hefty sum of $150 per week. This was a significant amount of money at the time. Even after the initial contract ended, Annie continued to shine as a sideshow attraction. Her stage presence only grew stronger, and her names evolved over time, from Infant Esau to Esau Lady, and finally to the Bearded Lady. Annie made sure to highlight her femininity, despite her facial hair. She dazzled the audience with fashionable clothes, creating an intriguing contrast that made her performances even more engaging. To add more flair to her shows, Annie learned to play the mandolin. This musical talent not only entertained the audience, but also added depth to her act. The combination of her facial hair and her feminine presentation fascinated audiences, making them eager to see her performances. This unique blend of characteristics made Annie one of Barnum's most famous performers, leaving a lasting legacy in the world of entertainment. Number 6. Lionel the Lionfaced Man. Stefan Bibrowski was born in 1891 in Poland, with an unusual condition that gave him excessive body hair. This rare condition is called hypertrichosis, and it made him look different from everyone else right from the start. His mother had an interesting explanation for Stefan's appearance. She believed that it was because she had seen his father attacked by a lion while she was pregnant. Whether that's true or not, it adds a fascinating twist to his story. When Stefan was just 4 years old, his life took a big turn. A man named Sedlmayr took him under his wing and began to exhibit him across Europe. This marked the beginning of Stefan's journey into the world of performance and spectacle. Talent scouts soon noticed Stefan's unique appearance and talents. They recruited him for the famous Barnum and Bailey Circus. For the next 19 years, he performed there, amazing audiences with his acrobatic tricks and friendly interactions. In 1920, Stefan decided to make a big move. He traveled to the United States and began performing at Coney Island in New York. Visitors were often surprised to discover that, despite his wild appearance, he was gentle and well-mannered. Stefan was actually a small man with big dreams. One of his aspirations was to become a dentist, which shows just how ambitious he was despite his unusual career. He was an intelligent person who could speak 5 languages. This skill allowed him to connect with a wide range of people and added depth to his performances. Through his shows, Stefan gave people the chance to see him up close. This experience challenged their preconceptions and made them rethink their ideas about what it means to be different. Number 5. Aloria Lewis, the Turtle Girl. Aloria Lewis, often called the Turtle Girl, was born in 1912 with some physical differences. Her arms had no elbows and ended in small hands, each with 6 short fingers. She also had 6 toes on one foot and only 1 toe on the other. Interestingly, she was the only one out of 9 children in her family to have these unique features. Starting in the 1930s and continuing until the 1950s, Aloria performed at Coney Island. During her career, people gave her different names, like Walrus Girl and Pig Woman. Despite these labels, she became well-known and successful. Alotoria's personal life had its ups and downs. She got married twice and changed her last name each time. Many men showed interest in her, possibly because she was financially successful from her performances. Aloria wasn't alone in her unique journey. Johanna Dickens, another performer with similar physical traits, often appeared with her. Johanna, known as the Bear Girl, was presented as Alotoria's relative. Together, they showcased their unusual physical features as part of their act, drawing crowds and making a name for themselves. Throughout her life, Aloria turned her differences into a career, showing that everyone has something special to offer. Number 4. James Morris, the Rubber Man. James Morris was born in 1859 in Copenhagen, New York. From a young age, he had an extraordinary ability. He could stretch his skin up to 45 centimeters from his body without feeling any pain. This unique skill entertained his friends and co-workers, who were amazed by what he could do. As word of his talent spread, even military officers took notice. They invited reporters to witness his incredible ability firsthand. Not long after, circuses, sideshows, and museums started recruiting Morris to perform for audiences. His talent took him around the world, and in 1885, he joined the famous Barnum and Bailey Circus. With Barnum and Bailey, Morris performed across North America and Europe. People everywhere were fascinated by his act. In 1898, Scientific American featured Morris and dubbed him the Rubber Man. For the journal, he demonstrated pulling the skin of his neck over his head, astonishing readers and scientists alike. Morris's condition, known as cutis hyperelastica, or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, causes extremely stretchy and fragile skin. Despite the challenges, Morris initially earned a good living from his performances. Unfortunately, his popularity decreased over time, partly because of his drinking and gambling habits. To support himself, Morris opened a barbershop in New York City as a second job. While his fame faded, his story remains a fascinating example of how people can turn unique talents into extraordinary careers. Number 3. Cucko the Bird Girl. Minnie Woolsey was born in Georgia in the year 1880 with a rare skeletal condition called Verco-Sekel syndrome. This condition made her look very different from most people. She had a very small head, a narrow face, large slanted eyes, and a small jaw. She also had a mild intellectual disability. In addition to these features, Minnie was bald, had no teeth, and had very poor vision. Life must have been quite challenging for her. A circus showman found Minnie in a mental hospital in Georgia and decided to make her part of his show. He took her out of the hospital and she started performing in shows. When she first began performing, Minnie was known as Minnie Ha Ha. She wore Native American clothing and spoke nonsense to entertain the audience. Later on, Minnie performed at Coney Island under a different name, the Blind Girl from Mars. Her performances were always unique and drew a lot of attention. The name Minnie Ha Ha was a reference to her supposed birthplace, Minnehaha Falls in Georgia. It was part of her stage persona and helped create a story around her character. In 1960, there were reports that Minnie was nearly hit by a car. This suggests that she lived to be at least 80 years old, which is quite impressive given the challenges she faced. However, the exact date of Minnie's death remains unknown. It's one of the many mysteries surrounding her life. Number 2. Lucia Zarate. Lucia Zarate once held the Guinness World Record for being the lightest adult. At 17 years old, she weighed just 2.1 kilograms. She was born in 1864 in Mexico. Although there is some dispute over her exact birthplace and year, what is clear is that she was a remarkable person. Lucia was the first documented person with primordial dwarfism type 2. Despite her condition, she was healthy, intelligent, and bilingual. She lived with her parents, who cared deeply for her. Lucia's unique size and talent led her to perform in the Fairy Sisters show. Later on, she teamed up with another dwarf, Francis Joseph Flynn, also known as General Might. Together, Lucia and Flynn toured outside the United States, wowing audiences wherever they went. By 1889, she was advertised as the marvelous Mexican dwarf, drawing large crowds eager to see her. Her performances brought in a good income. This allowed Lucia to travel with a maid and a translator. She enjoyed wearing custom-tailored dresses and loved expensive jewelry. Most of her tours took place in the eastern United States because of its dense population. This meant more people could see her amazing performances. In 1889, Lucia signed a contract for performances in San Francisco. This trip, however, turned out to be her last. During the winter of 1890, Lucia's train journey to San Francisco took a tragic turn. The train got stranded in the mountains during a severe snowstorm. Temperatures plummeted to -20 degrees Celsius. Her parents did everything they could to keep her warm and fed. Sadly, despite their efforts, Lucia Zarate died from hypothermia on January 28, 1890. Number 1. Pascal Pon, the two-headed Mexican. Pascal Pon found himself in the spotlight in the early 1900s when he was promoted as a two-headed man in the Sells Floto Circus. The story that circulated was quite dramatic. Pon had fled Mexico after losing his ranch and joined the circus to support his family. However, the truth was a bit different. Pon was actually a railroad worker from Texas who had a large benign tumor on his head. In 1917, a sideshow promoter discovered Pon and saw an opportunity. He created a wax mask to place over the tumor, giving the illusion of a second head. This clever trick earned Pon the circus name, the Two-Headed Mexican. After performing for several years, the circus manager decided to help Pon by paying for the removal of his tumor. Once the tumor was removed, Pon returned to Texas. What happened to him after leaving the circus remains a mystery. Some people believe he retired, while others think he resumed work as a laborer. Which of these circus performers would you have liked to see? Let us know in the comments below. If you'd like to check out more videos we've prepared for you, click on one of them on the screen or check out the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.